and welcome to Might Be Awesome. My name is Sam Bashor.
My name is DJ Wooldridge.
And thank you to Trisha Hershberger for joining us. Yay! Trisha, how are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here. It's too long since I've seen you gentlemen.
It's been a minute. But yes, it's also been a minute for Game of Thrones. We have the final season coming down the pike as we speak, and we need to kind of do a little recap, shall we?
Yeah,
yes.
we do.
We do. I know you've been rewatching the entire series going up to it, right?
I rewatched the last season because I made the same mistake that a bunch of us made for Infinity War. We're like, let's rewatch the whole thing before that, and then we're like, well, we should have waited a year.
We should have waited
a year and done it before the actual. So I rewatched it before season 7.
Nice.
So I just went back and rewatched season 7 before season 8. Yeah,
perfect. Yep.
Trisha, are you doing your little rewatch? Or do you feel like you caught up?
I also have done a rewatch of season 7.
Yeah.
I did not reread the books. I thought about audibling all the books that are available on Audible and hashtag not sponsored and re-listening to them, but it would take so long.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's also something counterintuitive by like rewatching every single season up till now. There's so much to take in that you would just be confused by the end of your rewatch.
Yeah. Real quick side note, I like the little blue in your glasses. Yeah, I think it's a nice touch.
Shout out to blue in the glasses.
Shout out to blue in the glasses. Yeah.
Little teal cat eye going on.
So you mentioned kind of getting a little confused, a little convoluted. Let's make that easier for the viewers. Let's go ahead and do a quick recap of everything that you need to know going into the final season, or at least everything that would make sense. You don't need to know everything. Everything that would be important.
Yeah. So So this is and we're gonna try and do it as quick as possible because I know
about
there's some
minutes.
Yeah. I know there's some breakdowns online that are like an hour or whatever. Who got time for that? All right. So if you're just coming in hot, you're like, what are the bare basics? And I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I think for the most part, the hardest thing to keep track of is the characters. So we're gonna go through the characters one by one. Start off with the main houses. Thankfully, there's only like 3-ish left. There's barely even that remaining.
We've done a lot of cleaning house.
In case you're like, again, in case you're just coming in, the houses are the families. It's like old medieval, like these are basically almost your political parties.
House Wooldridge, House Bashor, House Hershberger.
Or like it's House Hershberger, and then the houses of Wooldridge and Bashor have fealty to House Hershberger.
Maybe.
So we've pledged allegiance.
Maybe.
So we're going to start with the big one, the one that we all kind of started with in season 1. What's left of it? The Starks.
Yes. The boys and the girls of the Stark family.
Yes.
Most importantly, going into it, the head honcho as of now, basically because everyone else is gone, is Jon Snow. That's
and you're like, hold on. Why is his last name Snow if he's part of House Stark? Because he is sort of a bastard.
Yes.
For the majority of the series, we've known Jon as a bastard, and in this show, if you're a bastard, you get named after like your region, basically. So snow, sand, river.
Right, and since he was born in Winterfell, which is the north, it's Snow. The bastards of that area are last name Snow. So.
And the region matters. The north is always kind of snowy. It's also worth pointing out, in this world, one of the earliest kind of fantasy elements we were introduced to is that seasons last a long, long time, and we're going into what is considered a long winter. So theoretically, whole lifetimes could be lived in the winter that is coming for these characters. And winter is not only coming, it is here.
Yes. And winter is not only weather, it's also very scary undead things from above.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very exciting.
For this particular winter. And so Jon, through a series of events, he pledged to guard the wall, which is what keeps the scary undead things out. Through a series of unfortunate events, he is now back in Winterfell. He's labeled the King of the North. Yeah, I
think you're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
That wall's not looking too good right now, but also we have another.
We should mention that Jon also died and was resurrected, which will probably be important.
Yeah, that will probably be important, and we'll get to the agent of that resurrection in a little bit.
And will we get to the parentage in a little bit too?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people, gang. But moving, also another person who's leading the North right now is Sansa Stark.
Yes.
Yay! So yeah, Jon left Winterfell in Sansa's capable hands as he decided to journey to visit the Targaryens, who we'll get to in just a second.
She is the eldest Stark sister. She's probably the most capable of like being a ruler, because that was what. And by the way, everybody hated Sansa in season 1 for the most part.
It made me so mad.
And then if you're like me, by season 2 you kind of got on board because she's gone through it. She has been through it.
Yeah,
well, and she
more than she ever deserved in any lifetime ever and ever.
She has a crazy arc because she was raised as a noble girl to think, she's going to marry the prince and live happily ever after, and she's learning how to sew and speak different languages and learning her history and all that kind of stuff. And then she gets thrown into the SHIT very hardcore.
Yes.
Has
awesome.
Horrible things happen to her,
Which are not awesome.
rises out of it learning from everything that has happened to her and is now in an incredibly capable position.
Like a phoenix?
It's nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with this. But speaking of Game of Thrones actors that are also in X-Men movies that are in dubious states of release, we've got Arya Stark, who's also
a good segue.
That was a great segue.
Who's also been with. She's basically her arc for most of the show has been bouncing around with different scary mentor figures, learning how to be one of the scariest, most capable kill people on the
assassins,
show. Yeah,
kind of?
Basically.
She's nuts now, and that's debatable. Some people would think she still has her wits about her, but I'm like, oh, she's kind of a homicidal maniac.
At the beginning of season 7, yes. Back at the end of season 7, I'm like, okay, she seems more stable now. Okay. But at the beginning of season 7, I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, no, it's bad news bears for the Stark sisters.
But I think in general, people cheer for Arya. You want Arya to be able to come out ahead of time. And I think at the beginning of season 7 is one of the happiest moments I ever had to see Arya be as capable as she was.
And that moment at the beginning of season 7 where she takes out one of the main Stark enemies is from a ability she learned from the Faceless Men, who if you didn't get from the name, they were able to change their faces, which is a skill Arya was picked up from them, even though she didn't technically finish her training with them.
Yes, so she can look and sound like other people and then murder.
Which is also confusing because she's so small. And so how does she do it with a bigger person? But that's neither here nor there.
Nope.
Yeah. So the last remaining Stark child is Bran, who, like the rest, man, I need to stop saying it. They've all been through some shit. They've all been through it at this point.
Bran's the earliest at going through some crap.
That's true. He got shoved out a window and lost the use of his legs.
Yeah, it's a good taster, a little sampler of like, hey, just so you know, the kids aren't safe in this show.
Bad stuff's gonna happen to kids.
Yeah, and so without the use of his legs, he found some friends that were able to take him up beyond the wall, which again, there's scary stuff beyond the wall. And there's also the Three-Eyed Raven, which is basically the closest thing the show has to a wizard. I feel like is the best.
And now Bran is the Three-Eyed Raven.
He is the Three-Eyed Raven.
A wizard
what does that mean?
And
Good
an oracle. And an oracle. It can be whatever you want it to be.
There are many hot debates on Reddit about what it means to be the Three-Eyed Raven, and we know that Bran can travel through time.
Yes.
We know that he can see things through other people's experiences.
Yes.
And then we recently found out in the last couple seasons, or the last season, that he can affect the timeline, which was crazy, loophole-inducing, and could mean a lot of things moving forward into the final season.
It's also worth pointing out that he does not physically travel back in time, despite the fact that that we know of he doesn't physically travel back to fight.
His body's here.
Yes, which debunks one of my least favorite fan theories. But
we're gonna talk about that.
But yeah, you can also look through animals. That's another key.
Usually birds.
Yeah,
usually birds.
And so there are some people. It's called warging. There are some people who can warg into animals, but it's very rare that someone can warg into humans. Yes. And Bran has that ability.
We also have Davos, who was with during the War of the Kings, because there was a bunch of kings at once. He was with Stannis, but now he's with Jon.
I love Davos.
Davos is great, and we all love Davos. Yeah, we all love Davos.
Davos and Bronn, I really want them to get together at the end.
We'll get to Bronn in a minute, but next is Brienne, who is my wife's personal favorite.
She's great.
My personal favorite too. I'm in Brienne's corner.
Brienne was by Stark Mama. She was supposed to guard Sansa and Arya, and so now she's loyal to them. Yeah.
For a long time, though, she was in charge of not protecting, but kind of watching over Jaime Lannister.
Yes.
And they have a relationship.
And we'll get to more of that.
And before that, she was protecting Renly Baratheon. Yeah. So it might seem like her loyalty gets around.
But
however,
she's very loyal.
She shoots it straight. She has great morals that she stands up for, which isn't always awesome in this world. But so far, due to her morals and her strength, I believe she has lasted this long.
And the true love of Brienne's life, at least according to this character, is Tormund Giantsbane, who was part of one of the wildlings who lived where the poor humans stuck on the wrong side of the wall, living with all the scary things. But he, even though they didn't like the people with the Starks specifically, and anybody on that side of the wall, they've now joined forces because they've seen the scary things beyond the wall, and they're like, hey, maybe we should team up because this is bad.
We need all the help we can get.
And because of Jon's leadership, really. Yeah. That was like a huge thing that he was able to unite those two forces.
Also, kind of, this is a free agent that kind of just got lumped in with this house, is the Hound, who was loyal to the Lannisters, even though they didn't really do him any favors.
No.
And he's kind of a free agent at this point. And he has one of the best redemption arcs on the show, because he was a bastard. Like, he was relatable, but he was a bastard. And him kind of processing his own, like, just being a bad person has been a good arc.
Well, yeah, the Hound is a really great example of what Game of Thrones does really well, where it gives you lots of different layers, so you don't really have clear villains, or what might appear to be a clear villain then has heroic or respectable attributes later on, or vice versa. And the Hound has really, I think a lot of people are rooting for him now, even though he started out really hard in the villain corner.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Also, I wanted to mention, just going back just to Tormund for a second, the last time we saw him, it was bad news bears for him because he was on the wall, but I think we already know what his fate is going into the final season. But it was supposed to be a big question mark for like a few months at the very least.
We've also got, we're at 10 minutes. We got to get going. Yeah. So we've got Sam here. Sam is Jon's best friend when Jon was a watcher on the wall, and he's been learning. He's been off to the library.
He's training to become a maester, and he discovered some very important information about Jon's true parents. He also has a little baby and a girlfriend that travel around with him, which is not something you're supposed to do when you're on the wall.
Nope.
And we recently, due to events in season 7, we also found out he is in charge of his house now, House Tarly, which was never supposed to be the thing. His dad doesn't like him.
Yeah.
His dad is not looking too good, though.
No.
Also free.
Dad is out of the picture.
This is also, and by the way, she said maester. That's kind of like your counselor, your teacher that lives with these houses and kind of trains the rich kids how to know what to do.
Wise old advisor band.
Yeah, so this is also a free agent. We're going to touch on her briefly. Melisandre, she worships the Lord of Light, which is a god in this world that does have agency, specifically through people like Melisandre, and she's the one that brought Jon back to life, even though we don't really like Melisandre because she was partially responsible for the murder of a child.
For real bad stuff.
Yeah,
but she says, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
She knows that, and she may still have a bigger role to play.
And also, she's real hot. So moving on, we've got the Targaryens. This is the other big. This is the other big kind of like good guy team led by Daenerys Targaryen. She is the last of the Targaryens.
You're Targaryen.
She's the mother of dragons, the breaker of chains. So she and Jon are getting close.
Ooh, yeah.
And she is ready to take the throne. Let's throw up that Dany. Let's throw her up there.
There she is.
Yeah, Dany has had a really amazing character arc as well. We've seen her go from young teenage girl who was literally sold to breed to a civilization she didn't understand anything about, to a group of people she didn't understand anything about, and has made her way, has really come up to be a leader of this great army to reclaim the throne. So,
but arguably more importantly, she has dragons.
She gave birth to dragons.
Oh, yeah.
3 of them.
That sounds more kind of, she had eggs, and then they are her children, but she
didn't come. They
didn't come out of her womb.
Mother of dragons.
Yeah, she's the mother of dragons. And another family we're going to talk about later, but this is one of the main members, is Tyrion. He's also one of our main good characters, and he is the hand of the queen, which is the queen's counselor.
I love that you said good character because that's debatable.
But he's one of he's one of the few like good guy. The show was very complicated morally. Now, kind of at the end, we kind of do have the good guy team and the bad guy team.
A little bit more.
For the most part. More than we ever have before.
But Tyrion's a real smart guy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Very capable. And one of my personal favorite characters. Hopefully he makes it.
Yeah.
Keep it up. Every fingers crossed game.
Every fingers crossed. And the other very smart person is Varys, who has kind of been pulling the strings for the whole show. He's one of the minor characters that has a lot more influence than he appears.
Yes, and he, I would say, is the true independent agent of this series. He flat out says, I am in it for me. So at times he works for the Lannisters. Right now he's currently with the Targaryens. But ultimately he makes decisions that are best for himself.
And he would say the best for the kingdom.
Right.
Yes. Also for Team Targaryen, we've got Theon and Yara. Yara's in prison right now. She doesn't matter as much at the moment, except that Theon is going to go save her. Theon has done some awful things, but he also got his ding-dong cut off, so we all feel bad for him.
And all his skin flayed off.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I vaguely feel bad for that guy.
Yeah.
I'm like...
They got me back.
It took a long time. He did some horrible things, though, before he was tortured and his mind was crushed.
Yeah. A lot of bad things happen to Theon. Also, somebody that's struggled with some stuff is Jorah, who is probably Dany's most loyal supporter and is a character that will 100% die this season. He's one of the characters I feel most confident is definitely not making it out of season 8. But he's super loyal to Dany. He had a little problem called grayscale, which was a skin affliction that he's gotten taken care of.
He also has a little problem called in love with Dany, even though he's way older, and that is not okay with her sometimes.
There's not a cream for that.
There is not a cream for that. We also, one of Dany's loyal advisors is Missandei. Yay, we finally got to a person of color.
Took about 10 minutes into the video, but we got there.
Well, we skipped over the Dothraki.
Yes. Yeah. But because there's so much, guys. There's so much. And then we've got Grey Worm, who's part of the Unsullied, who also doesn't have a ding dong, but he's a great. We should have mentioned that about Varys too. This happens a lot. It's a big thing in this world. A lot of people are missing
the pillar and stones, my dude.
But he's a great warrior, and him and Missandei like to do kissy face stuff. And they also did more stuff which confused me personally, just the mechanics of it. But that's just the me thing.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So
you
now
make it work.
So now we're to the bad guys with the Lannisters, and you're like, wasn't Tyrion a Lannister? Yes, he is, but he's not currently part of that family. I mean, he's not working with them currently.
He's saying, "Screw you, Dad."
Yeah, really. He changed allegiance.
The big head honcho, and I would argue the big bad of the whole show is Cersei.
Right now,
yeah. And so she is currently sitting on the throne. She was the mother of the princes that were supposed to take over, and they were all dead.
And
all
her kids are dead. All those kids are dead.
And who did she have those kids with? Was it the king? No, it wasn't. It was her brother. Who's Jaime?
Her pretty brother. Very pretty.
They're both pretty.
Jaime is also a free agent at this point because at the end of last season, he and Cersei had a falling out because Cersei's breaking some. At the end, Cersei, Jon, and Dany all made a deal like, hey, let's set aside our differences to fight the White Walkers. And Cersei was like, YOLO, actually, I'm going to kill y'all. And Jaime's not.
Jaime was not down.
He was not having it because he's also gone on a redemption arc thanks to Brienne, who we mentioned earlier in the show.
I'm besides one very specific scene that happened between Jaime and Cersei, I was really on board with them. There's one specific
scene that doesn't track at all.
Nope.
At all.
And it seems like the showrunners are like,
whoopsie.
What we implied didn't come across in this. It comes out
But
gross.
keep in mind, remember when we talked about Bran being shoved out a window in the very beginning? That was all Jaime. Didn't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
So maybe not good guy.
They've not met again. Whoops. All right, so
here, I'll push you, man.
Speaking of ambiguous people, here's Bronn, and he was a sellsword that started working with Tyrion. He's very capable because he's very good at fighting dirty. He's one of my favorite characters.
Same.
Because he's very much a pragmatist.
He's
whatever
in it,
keeps him alive, whatever keeps him alive and out of trouble and keeps him paid, he's happy. This is not a sellsword. This is the Mountain.
Oh my God.
Sandor Clegane. He used to be a person.
He's an actual monster.
He is an actual monster.
But pre and after death.
Yeah,
100%.
He has one of my least favorite scenes on the show. A moment was
You ever accidentally dropped a cherry pie?
Yeah.
That's what he did that to a head.
So he was poisoned to near death, and the person that brought him back is this character, Maester Qyburn. We were talking about Maesters being kind of like the wise counselors. He likes to experiment on people, including the Mountain, who's now subhuman.
He does.
Is this guy still around?
Yes.
Yeah, he's working for Cersei.
Speaking of people working for Cersei, we've got Euron, who's the brother. He's the uncle of Yara and Theon.
Crazy how this happened. How now House Greyjoy and House Lannister are affiliated because Euron was like, screw y'all, I'm taking over. And Euron's a real badass pirate. So he was like, I'm going to do badass piratey things. And goes into Cersei and is like, hey, lady, I want to marry you. And in order to do that, I'm going to bring you a great prize. And then he comes back with Alaria Sand, who is responsible for Princess Myrcella, her death, which is one of Cersei's only daughter.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, yeah, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
And Yara.
Yeah. And now, he captured Yara as well. And now Euron is off to go get the Golden Company, which was, we have not met them yet. They're going to be new to season 8, but they were mentioned. They are a group of badass sellswords because the Lannister armies are looking a little thin. They got scorched by dragons.
But they kind of have money, so they can pay for mercenaries.
So now they're getting these mercenaries, and there was a mention of elephants, and I'm excited to see that for one.
Make them a little extra big, like in Lord of the Rings. Make them a little bit bigger.
Just a little bit bigger,
elephants.
Extra tusks. But the biggest bads of them all have to be the White Walkers, which are these guys, these scary guys right here. And we've been mentioning this whole time the scary things up north beyond the wall. These are those.
These are them.
Yeah. And so the way the White Walkers, there's the big White Walkers, which can bring the dead back to life, which are these. These are the whites. So they
classic zombies.
Basically standard zombie situation, except you don't need to worry about them biting you so much specifically.
Yeah, they're not going to eat brains.
Yeah. So and then the White Walkers bring them back, and the king of the White Walkers is this gentleman.
The Night King.
Yeah, who is a scary guy and also part of one of my favorite episodes of the show.
Oh, yeah. And great makeup.
Yeah, great makeup.
So, and great pet.
And at the end of last season, he was able to get one of Dany's dragons.
Viserion, R.I.P.
Yeah, and so now we have a ice dragon with blue flame. that's real scary, who flies faster than the others, it looks like. And he's what tore down a section of the wall, so now the White Walkers are able to get over. So that's,
yeah, it was the blue flame from the ice dragon that broke the magic of the wall to get through. So we can assume going into season 8, we're going to be dealing with some baddies very close to Winterfell very soon.
Yes, we definitely can. But it's important to circle back to Jon and Dany, because they are making kissy face right now at the end of last season. And we also discovered that Jon's not so much of a bastard, and also he's related to Dany. Trisha, you want to go into that real quick?
Yeah. So the whole series is called A Song of Ice and Fire. We finally have that here with a Snow and a Targaryen.
Yeah.
However, we find out that Jon Snow is actually not Ned Stark's bastard. He is Ned's sister Lyanna's natural-born son, with an affair that was actually a legit marriage. Thank you, Samwell Tarly. It's Lyanna and Rhaegar Targaryen. So Jon is actually both Stark and Targaryen.
Which makes him the coolest of all.
Yeah.
So we all were like,
he smooches her.
Right. Well, and I mean, Daenerys is technically his aunt. That's what that means.
Yeah.
But Targaryens are well known for intermarrying. Starks, that might freak him out a little bit. So I have a feeling that we are going to have a revelation of Jon's actual parentage somewhere in this season, and it's going to be a little bit awkward for both of them, for sure. But I feel like they're going to write it off as okay because they're Targaryens, and that's what Targaryens do.
I don't know about them writing it off, but they're definitely going to have a baby. And finally...
Oh, yeah, we think Daenerys is pregnant.
Yeah, Daenerys is going to be pregnant. And finally, let's wrap this up. What are some popular fan theories going into season 8 about what could happen?
So the one that I shout out to New Rockstars, because they're the ones who introduced this to me, which I thought was pretty fun, was that as our forces are heading to the north to confront the White Walkers in Winterfell, probably going to lose Winterfell, which is going to be a bummer, but that's probably going to happen. But the Night King, he's got his dragon, so he flies down to
King's Landing
and converts all those people into White Walkers. So you got a joint force meeting them basically in the middle, where they think that the South is safe. It's like, no, we already saw snow coming down in King's Landing.
Do you think we're gonna get a Cersei White?
It was interesting. Someone threw that idea out there so that because she wants to be the ruler, just period. Basically, she always wants to have that kind of control, so she might just sacrifice herself.
She might ally herself with them. That would be.
You got a popular fan theory,
Trisha? Well, I do think Dany's pregnant. My fan theory is that this entire thing is Bran's doing. I don't necessarily go with the Bran is the Night King theory, which is a very popular theory.
Yeah,
so basically
because their noses are similar.
Well, it's not just that their noses are similar. Basically, we now know that Bran can travel through time and affect time even when he's in someone else's body. And it was Hodor's storyline that taught us that.
Yeah.
So knowing that the time travel loophole is now introduced makes me shake my head, because there's so many things that then won't actually make sense. However, there are theories that if he went back in time and tried to become the first man who was originally turned into the Night King, that maybe he got stuck in the Night King's body, and that's how Bran is the Night King. That's that theory. However, we have no evidence to show that Bran can be in two places at one time. So if that were happening, I think Bran would still be in like coma state, working back into the Nightman, not mutually existing. So I'm with you. I don't care for that theory.
Yeah.
But I
do think he is responsible.
I think he's responsible. I think we've seen a lot of little things like the mad Targaryen king saying, burn them all.
Yeah.
I like to think that that's Bran going back in time and trying to tell him how to defeat the whites before they get too big and too strong. So, but he misinterpreted it, and there were voices in his ear, so he went nuts, which totally makes sense. And it's Bran.
And we've seen that. Yeah. We've seen Bran accidentally make someone go crazy.
Yes.
Right. And we saw that with Hodor. So I think it's Bran trying to figure out and hone how this works. And I think that will be the key to everything. Bran's time travel, which is a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina, and that upsets me a little.
Yeah.
But it might happen.
Also worth mentioning that the Night King can affect Bran when he wargs over to him. Like, the Night King can see him, and we've seen him grab Bran as he's working in front of him,
and the Night King was going after the first three-eyed raven pretty hard, and now he's going after Bran. So then people are like, well, why does the Night King care about the three-eyed raven so much? Yeah. And that lends people to the Bran as the Night King theory.
So this isn't a fan theory, but this is my theory rewatching the last season. I think the Song of Ice and Fire, which again is the name of the novels, the name of series of novels, which Game of Thrones is based, and we assume means Jon and Dany, I think also is a nod to Cersei and the Night's King, because Cersei likes to use wildfire. And I think the Night's King is actually a feint. I don't think the Night's King is the big bad. I think we're going to resolve the Night's King issue within the first couple episodes of the season. And the real threat is going to be Cersei, and Cersei kind of represents the people in our world that will use natural disasters and other bad things to further their own agenda. Because the show's always kind of been more about the evil that real people do, as opposed to crazy fantasy evil. So rewatching the last season, I really was feeling hard. It's like, this is about everybody versus Cersei. And I think the Night's King is going to affect everybody so hard. Everybody's going to be so diminished that when Cersei comes in with the Gold Company, it's going to be like, but for real, who do we fight her with? Who's left?
I kind of feel like they're going to go the opposite route, and Cersei's going to get taken out pretty fast, and then it's just going to be all against the Night King.
Place
and
your
it's
bets,
about
everybody.
the big magical evil.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. And I also think the Song of Ice and Fire could just be Jon.
Because he's
a Stark and a Targaryen.
Yeah.
It could really be Jon's story. So when people are like, who do you think is going to sit on the throne at the end? Knowing that the whole series is called A Song of Ice and Fire, there's a good argument to be made for the fact that it's Jon. I would like to see it be Jon and Dany married that rule moving forward. But of course it's Game of Thrones, so if one of them dies, that could totally make sense for how the series goes, because they don't like happy endings. But we'll see.
So that's some speculation. We'll get into more specific speculation down the line. But moving forward, let's look back. Like, that was everything you know as quick as possible.
We tried.
We tried. We did. We really tried. And we definitely missed some stuff. But
we did. I wanted to be like honorable mention: Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr. Like there's a lot.
Shout out to Gendry.
Yeah, shout out to Gendry.
Yeah,
Gendry's alive.
If you have the time, go back and watch the series at some point. It's very good.
It is really good. It is really. There's a very few sour notes in there, but for the most part, it's a very good show. One of the best we've ever had. Highly recommend it. And speaking of that, let's go back and revisit some of the stuff we liked. So we have a Discord. You can go to patreon.com/onlystupidanswers to be a part of the Discord. It's as low as $5 a month. So that's like $1 a week, basically.
That's great.
You can be part of that, and you can be part of our Discord and be part of the discussion, like Katalix, who sent us this question. I literally just started watching for the first time yesterday. Good for you. So what are your favorite episodes that I have to look forward to?
Hard Home is personally my favorite.
Hard Home is great.
Yeah, it's the one. I think because when we watched the last season when that aired, I watched every season as we went along. So if I watched episode 1 of season 7, I watched the first season in that way. Oh, it was real harrowing. But when I got to I got it. Like I got why people like the show, and I get that like this is a well-made show. Hard Home though was the first time I was like, everyone shut up. I was like, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm fully invested in this, and I'm terrified.
Yeah, Hard Home was great because at that point we had kind of learned the show's tricks. The second to last episode, something really big happened. That was, I think, like 3 episodes before the end. It felt like it had resolved. Cool, we've resolved the issue of the episode, and then suddenly,
just kidding.
Yeah, there's a rumbling, and it's like, wait, this is happening now? Like, hold on. And then it was like reveal after reveal. The Whites show up. We learned that Jon's sword with flaming steel. We probably should have mentioned that. And our other things, flaming steel's a big
Dragon
deal.
Glass.
All that stuff. I think Hard Home is one of the ones. And it's tough because I know there's little character moments in episodes that are really great, but your mind immediately goes to the big battle ones.
Yeah, well, and I would also say I think it was the season finale of series 1. Where Daenerys emerges from the flames.
That's great. And
I feel like that's a huge moment.
Going back to season 1, for me, the death of Ned.
That's the second to last
because
episode,
I didn't. You had to have already known.
Yeah.
For me, watching it, I didn't. I was just watching. I'm like, cool. So this is the moment where it's like watching Pirates of the Caribbean with Jack Sparrow with the noose. It's like, Will Turner's gonna come out and save him? Like, who's gonna come out and save him? And then the sword comes down, and I was like, what? I had to like text a friend that read the books. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, he's dead. I'm like, what? Because the advertising, he was our main guy. He was the biggest actor on the show. Like he was the closest thing we had to a main character. And I'd never had a show pull the rug out of me from under me so hard.
Yeah, there are several episodes where exactly like you said, you feel like you get the rug pulled out from under you, and it's devastating, and you're mourning. So it's hard to say those are the favorite episodes because that's very dark. However, that's one of the things I personally love about this show and this series is that it defies expectations. Once you think you have it figured out, like you said, second to last episode, it completely goes a different direction, and it really lets you know that anything is possible, no matter how evil it is. And when you think like, you think the show's going evil all the time, then something nice will happen. And it really keeps you on your toes. And so there's a lot of favorite episodes of mine that are episodes where you get the rug pulled out from under you in a super horrible way, and you might be mourning in your real life for the next week or so. But God, what a good episode.
You know, another favorite moment of mine, and I think it's fresh in my mind because I just rewatched season 7, and I know this moment got a lot of shit because Ed Sheeran was in it. But when Arya, speaking of like sweet moments, when Arya sits down with the Lannister soldiers and she realizes like, oh, these are people. These are people too. Like, just because I hate Cersei, don't even
know what's going on.
Yeah, just because I hate Cersei doesn't necessarily translate, and it's really important to where Arya's at, because that was right after she murdered all of what's his face, the Harry Potter guy, Craster. Not Craster. Craster's the guy. Frey. Yeah.
There you go.
Craster's the other creepy old man that fucks people he shouldn't be.
Well, she just murdered a ton of people over there. Not even just Frey. She murdered a ton. Which I think she counted them, and it was like 51 or something
and
like
it was
that.
All the people that were kind of involved in the Red Wedding or whatever. But it's like she's super crazy serial killer at that point. So that moment where she's with the Lannister soldiers is a nice humanizing moment for her.
Well, and it really brings to your attention how horrific war is, because there's so many people that this is not their war, but they have to fight it anyway. And how it affects, like the one soldier in that group says that his wife had a baby since he's been gone, and Arya said boy or girl, and he was like, I don't know, they don't send ravens for soldiers.
No.
And you're like, oh my gosh, this guy may never even know. Yeah. Like, he could die in war and never even know.
He probably will.
Yeah.
Yeah, he probably will. Yeah.
Other favorite moments for me is Brienne versus the Hound when they fought. Yeah. That was a really good moment, because it's mainly the cinematography that captures it so well. Because you this is gonna happen. You kind of felt they were gonna intersect at some point, and I liked with the stakes of it, especially for Arya not knowing who Brienne is whatsoever. No clue. That was a really good moment for me, as well as, I mean, the Red Wedding. I knew what it was going into it, but it still didn't change how horrific it was. I was just like, oh, so we're waiting, and it was like waiting for the roller coaster to drop. You're like, but this is the worst roller coaster I've ever been on, period. And just guess what? There's no tracks up there. You just fall down. It was bad news. And I wanted to say one more. Oh, the battle when Jaime sees dragons for the first time, and when Tyrion sees a dragon for the first time.
The loot train attack. I was going to say that's episode 4 in season. That's 7. Tyrion sees the dragon in Valyria. The loot train attack in episode 4 of season 7. That was like hard hope for me, where you're like, cool, the episode's done its thing. And then Bronn's like, do you hear that? Like, they're in the middle, they're making it, there's a prolonged dick joke about Sam's brother, Dickon. And they pause for a second, and Bronn's like, do you hear that? And then first it's the Dothraki, and you're like, oh no. And then the dragons, you're like, they're fucked. Like, there's no, it's like if you had a F-15 fighter jet in the middle of a medieval battle, you're like, what do we do?
But it's also so well done, because you're hoping for the victory of people on both sides.
Exactly. Those are my favorite battles, where there's and a good example of that is the Battle of Blackwater, because you don't like Stannis really, and you don't like Cersei or Joffrey. You definitely don't like Joffrey. But on the Lannister side, you have Tyrion, who you do like, and you have Davos on the other side, who you do like. So it's this real complicated, like, I don't really know who I want.
And Pod.
And Pod.
Pod's okay. Yeah. Everybody, Pod's okay.
Pod is abnormally large dick or okay.
We don't even know. Yeah. That's the best part about the Pod. So there's this Pod sex joke. The Pod is the best at sex ever, his first time. Yeah. But they don't even go into why.
That's true.
So you can speculate why.
Yeah, we don't
know.
They don't.
Hey, maybe we'll get those answers going to season 8.
We can only hope. We can only hope.
But we asked for some other questions from the Discord. Speculation going into the final season. We have a comment here from Boochtron, shout out. Do you all think that the White Walkers will quickly back it down south? The weird trailer showing ruins of Winterfell, was it more symbolic, or do you think fighting will happen there?
100%.
100%.
So at Winterfell and move south.
I think they're going south, baby.
Yeah. I am interested. The only thing, rewatching season 7, the only thing that got me wondering about this whole, the connection to the Night's King and the White Walker, and I hope there's a reason for it, and it's not just like one of the few times of sloppy writing, is what were the Whites doing until they got the dragon? Like, where are they going? What's the plan?
Yeah,
are they just waiting for, like, do they, because I think with the part of the Bran theory is that he knows he's waiting for the dragon. But if that's not the case, and I kind of hope it's not, what was the plan for them? Where were they marching to? Every time we cut to the White Walkers, they're marching someplace.
I think that this series kind of set it up that they're just like mindless destruction zombies that are just marching south.
The Night's King isn't.
Right, and that brings up a very good point. What is the Night King's goal? Yeah. Like, if he's marching south, why? I'm sure he doesn't care about King's Landing and the Iron Throne. So are they just trying to destroy to grow their numbers as much as possible? That's not really a very smart end goal. Are they specifically looking for Bran?
Yeah.
Like, are they specifically looking for Jon or Daenerys, and what does that mean and why? It's really...
It'd be interesting. I think a good one way to do it is if we never find out what the goal is, and this would be tricky for the show to do, but I've seen other media do it, where we don't know what the goal is, but we do know there is a goal. And that would, I think that would work, because what the Night King represents, it's not, you don't want him to have a sit down conversation and be like, well, here's my backstory. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I feel like you'd get an origin episode in this season, or normal shows would do that
we
at the very last
did
second.
with the Children of the
that.
Forest, and you shove dragon glass in his heart and it makes you the Night King.
But did we explain why he gets the babies to turn them into whites?
That's how he makes whites.
That's how he does. But but that's all we have so far.
Yeah.
Most normal shows would have like right near the end. It's like, just so you know, the bad guy's a human too. And it's like, oh, come on. Leave him a villain.
Which is why kind of like I think that Cersei's going to end up being the big guy, because she is a person. Like, we know she's crazy. She's not a good person, but I understand why I've met her dad. I've been with this character. She lost all her kids.
Yeah,
I get why she is the way she is.
She was told as a young girl, all your children are going to die, kind of by your own hand.
One of the few flashbacks we got.
It's been bad for her.
We got Kayla Marie 033. Do you think the writers will use the same ending that the books will have?
I would say a hard yes to that, because we know that George R.R. Martin sat down with the showrunners before the series even started and said, this is how it all ends. Yeah. And they came forward and said, we're going to take different routes to get there, but in general, they will all end with the same overarching ending, is what we've been told. Here's my addendum to that. I think one of the reasons we haven't gotten the last two books is George is waiting to see how this pans out. Oh, maybe. And
it's really smart.
Depending on the response, he might switch up some things.
He's active on social media. He knows what people like and what they don't like.
The chapters he has released so far of the next book that none of us have had yet, he intentionally releases chapters with a character that maybe is killed off in the series, but he's saying, look, they're still alive in the books. Like, he's intentionally doing things to show us that the books are taking a different route to get to the overall ending. But I think as far as, like, the big ending, what the Song of Ice and Fire is and all that kind of stuff, that'll be the
sitting
same.
On the throne,
but
that'll probably
unless there's a huge blowback from it. Kind of like how Lost didn't end with like a clean ending that everyone was on board with. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I don't want to know what your opinion is on it. But like, just putting that out there. The show's been off the air for like 10 years. Don't care. But with that, if it really blows back and people are just not sitting well with it, he would change it if he does write that book. Addendum if he writes that book.
That would be smart.
Robin, so little Robin, the suckling kid, he ends up on the Iron Throne and everybody's like, no!
But I had a dragon too. Where was that one? He brings it. Last question from Davey Backwards Zap. Okay, if Winterfell stands their ground and defeats the Night King, what would the North plan to do after that, in terms of Cersei? Because I feel like she'd change her mind. She'd change her tune. Well, I mean, she's already changed her tune. She's not following through with anything she's promising. Besides Jaime making his way up there, I don't see the Night King being killed off that quickly. And even with the Golden Company, you still have 2 dragons. You have one way of taking down a dragon, which was pretty effective.
That spear thing.
There was
a name for it. Scorpion?
Yeah.
Scorpion.
Yeah, even though it didn't do great, and the Night King's one worked a lot better. That one was magic and made out of ice.
That was another situation that made me question, because the Night King, when I like the idea behind the second to last episode last season with the guys that went beyond the wall. I like the idea of it. The execution was wonky. They're trapped on an ice island. The Night King's looking down at them, and we know his aim. We see later his ability to aim doesn't do anything. He's just waiting. And then the dragon shows up, and instead of attacking the dragon, all our main characters are right there with the dragon literally like 10 feet in front of him. Yeah. He's like, no, I'm going to go for that one. and then he nails it, and you're like, and I'm wondering, was that just like shit's happening because we're writing the episode and we just need shit to happen, or was there a reason behind it?
Or is he waiting for that dragon?
I think it might be bad writing. I think that episode might be bad writing.
They had a lot of juggle there, and maybe it just got to him. Pressure got to him. Also worth mentioning, if you kill one of the whites, the rest of the White Walkers that they turn die.
Yeah, which is
that's
convenient.
True. That's very
very end of Avengers. You blow up the ship, all the aliens die for some reason.
And the only way to kill them is by using dragon glass or Valyrian steel made weapons, or burning them.
Yes.
If you're able to like decapitate and then set on fire, that's a way to do it. But as far as
if you got time on your hands, you're gonna decapitate, set them on fire.
Totally. But as far as what will the North plan to do next, I think it's also important to bring up, should we take the Night King and the Whites out of the picture, correct me if I'm wrong, but by the end of season 7, do the Starks know that Jon has bent the knee to Dany?
Yes, and Sansa's not happy about it.
Right, okay. So how are they going to deal with that?
Yeah.
Do you think the rest of the Starks are going to then follow Jon and say, well, he swore fealty, so I guess that's what we're doing. He's the warden in the north.
Yeah.
Or are the rest of the Starks going to want to fight the Targaryens?
I really don't. That feels like when superheroes don't know each other, so they start throwing fists first, and you're like, oh my god, I just talked to each other.
It also reminds me a little bit too much of like, could Arya kill Sansa? It's like, no, let's move on from this. This is not.
But I felt like they bonded so much over killing Littlefinger.
Yeah, I agree.
And that does bring people together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Littlefinger, nice. That was a cool way to go.
He's super done. So now, who do we think? Big question. The question we've been asking since episode 1, who's going to end up on the throne, and maybe a little bit how?
Sam. There you go.
Sam.
Not going to say how. He's making it there.
Okay.
Just because
Great
Sam was your
period.
name.
There you go. Yes. Also, he's made it a lot longer than I thought he was. And he's super capable. You
Also,
want a
that's
guy with
another
some
good
smarts
one.
on the throne.
Who do we think is definitely going to go? So I think Jorah definitely is going to bite the dust.
I think Cersei.
Davos.
Cersei's got to go. Oof, Davos is
I know it's
probably
going to hurt. It's going
That's
to
going to
hurt.
hurt so hard if Davos goes.
Melisandre basically said, listen, she basically said to Varys, you and I are donezo. You know what I mean? We're both going to die here. Varys might die of old age, but he's definitely going to die in Westeros.
Missandei and
Grey Worm's definitely donezo.
They're dead.
Well, I don't know about Missandei, but Grey Worm definitely had that action movie. He's got to bone one last time before he dies.
That could happen.
Yeah.
Tyrion. Do we think Tyrion's going to last through the final season?
He's going to be a hard death, but it's going to be hard to watch. But I don't think he's going to.
I think if anybody makes it, I think Tyrion.
Really?
I think Tyrion. I think of the two, Dany, I would really be frustrated if they kill Dany and it ends up being Jon on the throne, because Dany's whole arc has been building to this, and the arc of the show has been following these women in a male-dominated society and seeing specifically Dany and Cersei, them navigating their own path to carving out their own spot in a man's world. And so to have your lead female die and have it continue to be man's world, I guess maybe that would be the point. Like, hey, guess what? Didn't matter. Which is a perspective, but I would disappoint me.
This series has so many strong female characters, and it's interesting because I was just talking to someone that had only watched season 1, and this was a woman who
back
said,
in the Sexposition days.
Yeah, and she was like, I stopped watching it because I felt like it was too derogatory towards women, and I was like, keep watching, please keep watching. They're some of the strongest female characters I've seen on TV on this show. Please keep watching.
Yeah, because even Cersei, like she's the closest thing you have to like a true antagonist, true villain, but she's so layered, and Lena Headey's performance is so good.
Well, and in the beginning, though, even Cersei gets a lot of like, what do you know, you stupid woman? And she's discounted a lot, even though she is playing
She
pretty
blows
smart.
up everybody. That's another moment that
then
really...
she goes nuts.
The music score for that moment when she blows everybody up. But so Sam on the throne for you.
Sam that's for
funsies.
No,
it's too late. No, okay.
It's weird because it comes down to the two of them, Jon or Dany. Jon died already, and we've said that. Like he died already, but if he dies again, I'm like, what was the point? Like, why just leave him dead and pick somebody else, or don't kill him before and kill him now? Like, do something like that. I don't like that, doing like back and forth. Just make a decision. Yeah. Killing Dany though seems stupid. Her long title is there for a reason, and she has freed so many people, and she's changed, and she's grown, and she's united the world, and it's like it would be so stupid for her to die.
What if she self-sacrifices so that Jon can have the throne?
And what if the last second, like she's jumping in front of the bullet, but then he bends down in front of the bullet, and he dies, and she makes it.
He bends on the knee.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he took the knee. Trisha, who do you think ends up on the throne?
It's going to be, and this is probably too much of an answer, but it's going to be, I think, Jon and Dany together, or one or the other. Mm-hmm. That's where we're going. I don't think we're going to get one. I don't think we're going to get a surprise Tyrion on the throne or anything like that. Yeah. I think it's definitely going to be one of those two.
I agree with that.
But I think, honestly, we're leading towards both of them married or Dany's unborn child.
Yeah.
Maybe being the successor, but I do think it's going to be a combo.
After the long, brutal winter, once we finally rebuild King's Landing.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to lose more Starks.
So it'll be what Robert and Ned wanted to begin with.
Yeah.
The Starks and the Baratheons.
Well, and I think I'm wondering if Gendry might be an outlier too, considering he's Robert's bastard. You know what I mean?
He fully gets eaten by the dragon.
He gets
fully gulped up.
I do think...
I know, Baratheons are all dead now, huh?
Yeah, and technically, if you go by like the naming convention of the time, the Starks are essentially gone because Bran's not going to have kids. You know, he's all but said he's basically robot three-eyed Raven Bran at this point. Like, he's not.
So Jon is.
But he's not a Stark. He's a Targaryen.
He is a Stark. His mama.
But he's by naming convention. He's a Targaryen.
By naming convention. Yeah, by his dad's name.
Yeah, naming convention at the time. All you have left is Sansa and Arya. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And I think Arya's going to go off and be an adventurer, and I think Sansa's going to be Wardeness of the North, and she might end up with Gendry, which would also be what the parents wanted. All of you got the Baratheon and the.
Oh, yeah, that's the Baratheon Stark.
Yeah, even though Gendry and Arya have had more chemistry and time together and stuff like that.
You know what? I'll throw my hat in the ring. Theon's gonna get it. Theon's gonna get the throne. And if we've got support for that, let us know in the comments down below. It's very important. But also tune back in. Oh, sorry. Last one. Theon support.
I was just gonna say, I feel like when you're going Theon support, and we're going like really out there ballpark guesses. You're on Greyjoy, folks.
Yeah. What I would like to see before we wrap up, what I would like to see on the throne, personally, even though it's kind of icky, Jon and Dany, they did a good job in season 7 building their chemistry and building a relationship between the two. Where I bought it, and they're two of my favorite characters on the show. They've really done a lot. It would be cool to see that. I think it's going to be one of them, and I would say probably Dany.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also Theon, just from. All the way into the court, and you see if we can make it. He's probably not. He's probably dead within the first episode, and that would make the most sense for his character. But again, you can tune back in every Monday for our review of the newest episode of Game of Thrones. Make sure you join us. You can get us. You can get a lot of behind-the-scenes content at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. Yes, please, but make sure you're subscribed here. It Might Be Awesome, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MightBeSocial. DJ, any plugs?
Definitely check out everything we're doing. It Might Be Awesome. You guys were so supportive of our Game of Thrones reviews last time that we're excited to dive back into them again. And we're going to be doing our recaps on Might Be Awesome. But there's going to be special bonus stuff with friends every week at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers.
And there's a special offer going for the next 2 weeks. Do not miss out on it. You get a personal video from these two jokers over here, and it's they're going to be pretty fun. So don't miss out on that. But Trisha, plugs.
Might Be Awesome. Go check it out, guys.
There we go.
I'm so happy that you guys are doing exciting new channel stuff.
Oh, yeah. We're super pumped. There's going to be a lot of cool videos coming out very soon, so make sure you're subscribed and have that little bell notification so you don't miss out on anything.
Oh, that's important.
Really cool. It's very important, and I always forget to do it, but you be better than me, all right? Don't do as I do. Do as I say.
I forget to do it, too. No, I mean, if I'm going to plug anything, I'm doing a lot of stuff, so it's hard. Just if you follow me on social media.
What's your favorite thing that you do?
My favorite thing that I do right now that's like my for me thing is playing around on twitch.tv/Trisha Hershberger.
Boom.
I just like playing video games with friends, and that's what it feels like I'm doing. And that is my I'm not having to mom right now. I'm not having to work right now. That's my me time that I just feel like I invite friends to share with me. So that is the coolest, most chill thing. So I would say if you like watching video gameplay on Twitch, I stream a lot of different games, and I try to highlight games that are more independent that you may not have heard of. So if you like being exposed to new games that are not very expensive, because indie games tend to be cheaper, then come hang out with me on Sundays and Wednesdays over there.
Very cool. Also, maybe check out Austin Dodge, One for the Eye on Twitch. He's live switching for us. He's a big help. He makes this channel run behind the scenes, so big appreciation. But I think that's it. All business done. Make sure you comment down below so we can read your comments on the podcast. Only Stupid Answers, new every Monday. And get all the other info at onlystupidanswers.com. Boom, boom. That's it, gang. We'll see you next time. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.